It's one thing to talk about a firm representing someone in an insurance case, a vehicle insurance case, but it appears as if you and your firm go deeper, provide a deeper, several layers of options for folks. For instance, truck-related accidents and insurance related to that.
Well, first of all, with trucks, you really have to know the federal regulations and the state regulations because the rules are different from, say, just a basic car. You have weight classifications. A lot of people don't realize what is classified as a commercial vehicle, but that's very important because it can provide a lot more insurance coverage. But the other thing is you have to know what you're doing in terms of what the different insurance policies are that are available. And the reason I say this is, some truck crashes, the injuries are minor, in which case that's wonderful because the person doesn't need much coverage. But man, it doesn't, it's not very, I should say it's pretty frequent that we get cases where people are severely injured and they're wondering not just about paying their bills now, but into the future. And so then you have to know, well, there's coverage that can come on the tractor, there's coverage that can come on the trailer, and you have to actually get into what they call the master transportation agreements, because a lot of times you'll have what they call chameleon carriers, people that or entities that are responsible, but they're not even identified. And so if you don't know all that, you're never going to find out.
There's no way the general motoring public knows that much about those kinds of situations.
Yeah, not a chance.
And the insurance related to it. What's your initial, when somebody comes to you in a situation like that, run us through a case.
Well, so the first thing is we hope that if somebody's got a serious injury, they contact us right away because you got to get somebody out on site. So we'll get an accident reconstructionist out there on the site right away. A lot of times they'll put drones up in the air, they'll survey the site, get everything photographed, and we'll be able to photograph also the injuries, or the damage to the vehicles. You start to get measurements and everything else. It's really important. I mean, the worst is a lot of times people will try to deal with this on their own for 6 months or a year or 2 years, and then come to me and say, hey, what can you do for me? And we can still do a good bit, but if the issue is, well, how was this crash caused? Could have been avoided? Was the person who was injured at fault too? Boy, it gets a lot tougher to figure all that out once time has passed. And we want to get in and get the electronic devices. There are typically at least 3 electronic devices involved in a truck crash. And if you get that electronic data and you preserve it and you download it, you can start to figure out what everybody was doing and what they were paying attention to and what they weren't paying attention to and where the vehicles were just prior to the crash.
What are my expectations of a client in contacting you in a case like this?
As I say, we try to do a lot of work right at the outset. If you've got a firm that's really not doing anything and they're basically just signing somebody up and saying, oh, we'll get back to it later, that's a bad sign. And there are plenty of good lawyers, so you can work through it and find people that know what they're doing, but you really do have to be particular. And you want to make sure that the attorney is getting on that case early. We tell everybody, tell us everything at the outset, and literally we'll take it all and read it for hours and hours so that we want to know it at the outset, know your story, know your history, and figure it all out so that there aren't surprises later on.
What could I possibly expect to receive as part of a settlement as we work our way to the bottom line of a case at the end of the run, at the end of the work? How does that play out? What are my expectations?
Well, the first thing you should expect an attorney that really is able to analyze not just the liability but the insurance, because if you got serious injuries, you need to know what all the insurance is that's available, and it's not at all obvious. All right, so then beyond that, we have to look not just as to what your injuries are now, but what the future care is. And so we'll get what are called life care plans put together. Because a lot of our folks, might be in their 20s or 30s. In fact, I've got a guy right now who's in his early 40s, and he has sustained a brain injury as a result of a truck crash. It happened, and it's ironic. When it first happened, he thought that he would be okay, and then everybody around him said, wow, this guy is profoundly different. And it wasn't just his friends, but it was medical staff, dentist staff, all this sort of stuff. Now we're looking at, well, if he's only in his early 40s and he's having these problems, what's he going to need and what's he going to experience when he's 70 and 80 years old? And you have to plan those things.
This has to go beyond just client and attorney, client and firm. There's a lot of a human element to this.
We like our clients. If our clients don't like us or we don't like them, the relationship ends. We like our clients and we're concerned about them. And it's not a 9-to-5 job. We worry about them. People call us and we tell them, look, if you have to call us in the middle of the night, it's okay, because a lot of people, and it's not just the person who's been hurt, but the family members, they're scared to death and they're trying to figure out, what do we have to do? I mean, they're in deep water, it's rushing, they have no idea, they've never been through this before. How are they going to get through this? What's coming next? How do they pay all these bills? That insurance adjuster is calling, should we talk to him? What are we going to need in terms of care going forward? You know, how do we organize all this stuff? So the mental aspect and the mental drain on the family and the individual is considerable, and we take it very seriously to try to help them work through that as best as possible.